The scream that tore through Maggie's diner at 8:47 on a Saturday morning in October had no sound. Sarah No Lily, 8 years old, small hands flying to the left side of her head, face contorting in a pain so absolute it seemed to radiate from somewhere deeper than bone. Her mouth open wide, vocal cords producing vibrations she couldn't hear, couldn't control, couldn't stop. The fork she'd been holding clattered against the plate pancakes, forgotten orange juice, tipping precariously at the table's edge. Jackson Cole caught his daughter before she hit the floor. 6'3", 240 pounds of leather and road-worn muscle, moving with the reflexes of a man who'd once pulled wounded soldiers from burning vehicles in Kandahar. His hands, scarred from shrapnel that had left constellation patterns across both palms, cradled Lily's head with a gentleness that would surprise anyone who'd only seen him astride his Harley at the head of Steel Brotherhood pack rides through Austin's hill country. The other diners fell silent. Not the comfortable quiet of Saturday breakfast, but the held breath hush of strangers witnessing private anguish. An elderly couple at the counter exchanged glances. A businessman in a rumpled suit looked up from his newspaper, then quickly away, deciding this wasn't his concern. 3 construction workers in paint-spattered jeans stopped mid-conversation, their unease visible in the way they suddenly found their coffee cups fascinating. Jackson's weathered face, 42 years of sun and wind, and harder things etched into every line, remained calm. His hands moved through the practiced sequence Lily had taught him 5 years ago when she'd first learned American Sign Language at age 3. His fingers formed the words with precision that would have impressed her teachers at the Texas School for the Deaf. "Baby, I'm here. Breathe through it. Count to 10 with me." Lily's small hands, still pressed against her left ear, trembled. Her eyes squeezed shut, tears streaming down cheeks that still held traces of childhood roundness. She tried to sign back, but the pain fractured her concentration. Her fingers formed half shapes, incomplete words, frustration compounding agony. Behind the counter, Maya Patel watched. 26 years old, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, green Maggie's diner apron tied over jeans, and a faded UT Austin sweatshirt. She'd been wiping down the Formica surface with practiced efficiency when Lily's episode began. Now the cleaning cloth hung forgotten in her hand, her dark eyes tracking every detail with an intensity that went beyond casual concern. This was the 4th time Maya had witnessed Lily's pain in 6 months. Every Saturday morning at 8:30, Jackson and his daughter claimed the same corner booth by the window. Same order, chocolate chip pancakes for Lily, black coffee, and wheat toast for Jackson. Same quiet conversation conducted entirely in sign language. Jackson's calloused hands surprisingly graceful as they shaped words, Lily's responses quick and fluid despite her age. And 4 times now Maya had watched Lily's face transform mid-meal. 4 times she'd seen the little girl's left hand fly to her left ear. 4 times she'd noted the specific angle, roughly 45 degrees, that Lily tilted her head as if trying to relieve pressure from some invisible weight lodged deep inside her skull. The consistency nagged at Maya. Her nursing training, 3 years completed before she dropped out to care for her dying mother, had instilled certain habits. Pattern recognition, differential diagnosis, the ability to notice what others missed. Her professors at UT Austin's nursing school had praised this quality, though they'd couched it in more academic terms. Exceptional observational acuity and intuitive diagnostic reasoning appeared in her file alongside the incomplete notation that had haunted her for 3 years now. Lily's breathing began to slow. Jackson's hands continued their steady signing, a litany of comfort and presence. His face remained composed, but Maya caught the tightness around his eyes, the way his jaw clenched almost imperceptibly. This man, president of Steel Brotherhood Motorcycle Club, owner of Cole's Custom Cycles on East Riverside Drive, veteran of 3 combat deployments to Afghanistan between 2008 and 2012, looked more afraid watching his daughter's pain than he probably had facing down Taliban insurgents in Helmand Province. Maya knew Jackson's story the way everyone in this part of Austin knew it. The motorcycle community was tight-knit, and Jackson Cole's tragedy had rippled through it like shockwaves. His wife, Catherine, everyone had called her Kate, killed 8 years ago when a drunk driver crossed the center line on Highway 290. Jackson had been driving. They'd been celebrating their anniversary. Kate had died on impact. Jackson had survived with 3 broken ribs, road rash that scarred his left shoulder and back, and guilt that apparently still sat heavy enough to see from across a diner. The accident had happened 3 years after Lily went deaf. Maya had pieced that timeline together from overheard conversations, from the way Maggie, the diner's owner and unofficial historian of her regulars' lives, would share information with the comfortable authority of someone who'd been serving eggs and coffee in this neighborhood for 35 years. Lily's episode was subsiding now, 10 minutes from onset to the gradual relaxation of her small frame. Jackson eased her upright, checking her face with the methodical thoroughness of someone who'd done this too many times. His fingers moved again. Better? Lily nodded, exhaustion clear in every line of her body. Her fingers shaped a response. Hurts less now, sorry. Jackson's face cracked slightly, pain bleeding through his careful control. His hands moved. Never apologize. Not your fault. Never. But Maya saw something else in Jackson's expression. Something that went beyond a father's helpless anguish watching his child suffer. There was guilt there, deep and old, and possibly misplaced, but no less consuming for that. Maya recognized it because she'd seen the same look in her own bathroom mirror for 8 months after her mother died. The look of someone convinced they should have done more, been better, somehow prevented the unpreventable. The diner's normal rhythm resumed gradually. The elderly couple returned to their scrambled eggs. The businessman rattled his newspaper. The construction workers picked up their conversation about the job site in Round Rock, their voices carefully not acknowledging the small drama at the corner booth. Maya's hand tightened on the forgotten cleaning cloth. She'd been a waitress for 3 years. 3 years since she'd walked away from nursing school with 1 year remaining, $47,000 in student debt, and no degree to show for it. 3 years of watching her observational skills, that exceptional acuity her professors had praised, slowly atrophy from disuse. What good was noticing patterns if you couldn't do anything with the information? But this pattern bothered her, had been bothering her for months now, building into an insistence she couldn't quite shake. She thought about her nephew, her brother's son, who'd spent 3 months at age 4 complaining of ear pain. 2 doctors had found nothing wrong. Her brother and sister-in-law had been ready to write it off as attention-seeking behavior. Maya had been playing with the boy one evening, using her phone's flashlight to make shadow puppets on the wall, when the light had caught at the wrong or right angle into his ear canal. She'd seen something, small, round, waxy, not earwax though, wrong color, wrong texture. She'd insisted her brother take the boy to a third doctor, specifically requesting someone look at a very precise angle and depth. The pediatrician had found a small plastic bead from a broken toy lodged so deep and covered in so much accumulated wax that it had perfectly mimicked the appearance of normal ear canal anatomy. The extraction had taken 15 minutes. The boy's behavioral ear pain had vanished immediately. Maya remembered the pediatrician's words. Good catch. Another month and this could have caused real damage. How did you spot it? She'd shrugged, embarrassed by the attention. I just noticed the way he always tilted his head. Same angle every time. Now watching Lily consign tiredly to her father while picking at pancakes she clearly no longer wanted, Maya felt that same nagging insistence building in her chest. The same angle every time. Always the left ear. Always that specific 45-degree tilt. Jackson was signing something about heading home, about Lily resting, about maybe calling the doctor again on Monday. Maya watched Lily's response, reading the resignation in the child's small shoulders. The girl had probably heard, or not heard, rather some version of that promise dozens of times. More doctors, more appointments, more shaking heads and apologetic explanations that nothing could be done. Maya's mother had raised 5 children on a housekeeper's wages while her father worked tech support at Dell. Maya had been the youngest, the observer, the one who'd learned to read moods and anticipate needs as a survival mechanism in a chaotic household where attention was a limited resource distributed among too many claimants. She'd learned to notice which sibling was in a bad mood before they snapped. She'd learned to see when her mother was truly sick versus just tired. She'd learned to detect the warning signs of her father's stress before it boiled over into shouting. Those skills had made her an excellent nursing student. Her clinical instructors had marveled at her ability to walk into a patient's room and within minutes identify problems that weren't in the chart. The way Mrs. Rodriguez's breathing had changed half a day before her pneumonia showed up on x-rays. The subtle facial asymmetry that suggested Mr. Thompson was having a stroke even though his symptoms were mild and he kept insisting he was fine. The pattern of bruises on a 7-year-old's arms that made Maya quietly pull her supervising nurse aside to discuss possible abuse. But none of that mattered after her mother's pancreatic cancer diagnosis. Stage 4. 6 to 12 months, the oncologist had said. Though Maya had seen the truth in the doctor's eyes, 6 months was optimistic. Her mother had lasted 8, and Maya had been there for every one of them. Dropping out of school, moving back into her childhood home, learning to manage pain medications and feeding tubes, and the 100 small indignities of a body slowly betraying the mind that inhabited it. Her mother had died at 3 in the morning on a Tuesday in February. Maya had been holding her hand. Her father had been sleeping in the chair by the window, exhausted from his own vigil. 2 of her siblings had made it to the house by dawn. The other 2 arrived that afternoon, guilty and grief-stricken and full of explanations about jobs and children and distance that Maya had accepted, because what else could she do? The student loans had come due 6 months after graduation would have occurred. Maya's status withdrawn incomplete. The $47,000 she owed might as well have been $47 million. She'd applied to return to the nursing program. The answer had been sympathetic but firm. She'd have to reapply through the standard admission process, no guarantee of acceptance, and her previous credits would only be valid for 5 years from the date of withdrawal. So Maya had taken the waitressing job at Maggie's Diner. The tips were decent, especially during weekday lunch rushes when downtown office workers packed the place. Maggie herself, 67, white-haired, with a voice roughened by 5 decades of cigarettes, she'd finally quit 10 years ago, had been kind, patient with Maya's initial mistakes. Willing to work around the therapy appointments Maya still attended for the PTSD she'd developed after watching her mother waste away. But every day Maya felt her nursing skills rusting. Every day she felt a little more like a waste of potential. Every day she wondered if this was it, permanent deferral of the life she'd imagined, the career she'd wanted, the person she'd thought she'd become. Except for moments like this. Moments when her brain kicked into diagnostic mode despite her current job description. Moments when she couldn't stop noticing. Jackson was helping Lily slide out of the booth now. The episode had drained the child's energy, left her pale and listless. Jackson's arm wrapped protectively around her shoulders. He nodded to Maggie behind the counter, a gesture that meant, "Put it on my tab, he'd settle up later." Maggie nodded back, concern clear on her weathered face. Maya's heart began to pound. This was insane. This was none of her business. This was exactly the kind of overstepping that got waitresses fired and possibly accused of much worse. She wasn't a nurse. She had no credentials. She had no right to insert herself into this family's private medical situation. But that angle, that consistent, specific angle, and the fact that 23 specialists, Jackson had mentioned the number once to Maggie, his voice hollow with defeat, had apparently looked at Lily's ears and found nothing. Had they looked from that angle? Had they examined her while she was actively tilting her head that precise way? Had anyone noticed the pattern? Maya's hands were moving before her brain caught up with the decision. She untied her apron, draped it over the coffee station, and crossed the diner floor. The distance from the counter to the corner booth felt infinite and instantaneous. Maya's pulse hammered in her ears. She could feel every eye in the diner tracking her movement, could sense Maggie's confusion, could see Jackson's posture shift as he noticed her approach. She stopped at the edge of the booth. Jackson looked up, his face settling into polite neutrality, the kind of expression that said he appreciated her work, enjoyed her service, but wasn't interested in conversation beyond the transactional. Up close, his eyes were striking pale blue, made paler by contrast with sun-weathered skin. Combat veteran's eyes, always tracking, always assessing. Maya's voice came out steadier than she'd expected. "Mr. Cole, I'm so sorry to interrupt." Jackson's shoulders tensed incrementally. His arm tightened around Lily. The protective instinct was automatic, ingrained. Maya registered it and took a half step back, making herself smaller, less threatening. "I've been serving you both for 6 months now. I've seen Lily have these episodes 4 times. Jackson's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Wariness. The beginning of anger, perhaps. His voice came out flat, and Maya forced herself to maintain eye contact. "I've noticed something about the pain. It's always the left ear, always. And Lily always tilts her head the same way when it happens. Roughly 45 degrees. Jackson's jaw tightened. "You've been watching my daughter." The accusation landed like a slap. Maya's face heated. "Not watching. Noticing. There's a difference. See, I was a nursing student. I dropped out to care for my mother, but I notice patterns. And Lily's pain has a very specific pattern." Lily had been watching Maya's lips, reading the words. Her small hand tugged on Jackson's vest. She signed something quick and fluid. Jackson glanced down, his expression softening for a moment, before hardening again as he looked back at Maya. "My daughter says you're the nice waitress who always remembers she likes extra syrup." Maya managed a small smile. "I do remember." Jackson's expression didn't thaw. "I appreciate your concern, but Lily has seen 23 specialists, audiologists, ENTs, neurologists. We've been to Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, Stanford. Everyone says the same thing: profound bilateral sensor and neural hearing loss cause unknown chronic ear pain, secondary to the condition, nothing to be done. 23. Maya had heard the number before, but hearing it stated so baldly with such weary finality made her realize the depth of this man's exhaustion. 8 years, that's how long Lily had been deaf, according to diner gossip. 8 years of doctor's appointments. 8 years of hope deferred. 8 years of watching his daughter suffer while experts told him there was nothing to be done. Maya took a breath. "Mr. Cole, I understand, and I know I'm just a waitress. I have no credentials, no authority. But I worked 3 years toward a nursing degree. I did clinical rotations in pediatrics. And I've seen something like this before." Jackson's eyes narrowed. "Seen what?" "My nephew had a bead stuck in his ear for 3 months. 2 doctors missed it because it was deep in the canal, covered in wax, and it looked exactly like normal ear anatomy at the wrong angle. I spotted it by accident." "A bead?" Jackson's voice carried flat disbelief. "A small plastic bead from a broken toy. The point is, doctors look for standard pathologies, standard presentations, but sometimes, not always, but sometimes the answer is something simple that's just positioned in an unusual way." Jackson stood. His height was imposing, his physical presence suddenly filling Maya's awareness. He wasn't trying to intimidate her, Maya could see that, but the effect was undeniable. This was a man who'd commanded respect in combat zones, who led a motorcycle club, who'd probably faced down threats and violence that would send most people running. "Miss," Jackson paused, realizing he didn't know her name. "Patel, Maya Patel." "Miss Patel, I appreciate that you're trying to help, but you're talking about my daughter, my 8-year-old deaf daughter who's lived with chronic pain for most of her life. 23 trained medical professionals with decades of combined experience have examined her. They've used equipment I can't begin to understand. They've run tests that cost thousands of dollars. And you're telling me they all missed something, that you with 3 years of incomplete nursing school spotted what they couldn't? Put like that, it sounded insane." Maya felt her resolve wavering. Who was she to question 23 specialists? Who was she to insert herself into this situation? But then Lily tugged on Jackson's vest again. Her small hands moved, signing something Maya couldn't fully follow. Jackson looked down at his daughter, and the hardness in his expression cracked slightly. When he looked back at Maya, some of the defensive anger had drained away. "Lily wants to know what you think you saw." Maya knelt down, bringing herself to eye level with Lily. The girl's face was still pale from the episode, exhaustion evident in the dark circles under her eyes. But there was intelligence there, curiosity, and something that looked like desperate hope. Maya spoke slowly, knowing Lily could read lips. "I think there might be something in your left ear, something deep that doctors might miss if they're not looking from exactly the right angle, something that's not only causing pain, but might be blocking sound." Lily's eyes widened. Her hands flew, signing rapidly to her father. Jackson watched his face, a complicated mixture of emotions Maya couldn't fully parse. Finally, he looked back at Maya. "What exactly are you proposing?" Maya's heart hammered. This was it, the moment where she either walked away or committed to something that could change everything or ruin everything, or both. "I want to look in her ear. Just look. With proper light and magnification. My phone has a good flashlight. If I'm wrong, you never have to speak to me again. But if I'm right," she let the sentence hang. Jackson stared at her for a long moment. Behind them, the diner had gone quiet again, every patron now openly watching this confrontation. Jackson's voice came out rough. You're asking me to trust my daughter's well-being to a waitress with a hunch. No. Maya stood maintaining eye contact. I'm asking you to trust 8 years of your own frustration. 23 specialists missed something, and maybe they all looked from the wrong angle. Maybe they all relied on standard protocols that don't account for unusual presentations. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust that there might be an answer no one's found yet. Jackson's face worked through several emotions. Maya could see the war happening behind his eyes. Desperate hope versus protective caution. The father who'd do anything versus the man who'd learned not to trust easy answers. Lily tugged on his vest again. This time when she signed, Maya caught the words, "Let her try, Daddy, please." The sound that came out of Jackson's throat was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. He scrubbed one hand across his face, and when he looked at Maya again, something in him had shifted. If you hurt her— I won't, Maya interrupted. I'll stop at the first sign of discomfort. This is just an examination, just looking. Jackson nodded once, sharp and decisive. The gesture of a man making a command decision on incomplete information, the way he'd probably made hundreds of decisions in combat. All right, but not here. He looked around at the watching crowd, his expression hardening. Everyone can stop staring now. Show's over. The other patrons quickly found renewed interest in their food. Maggie caught Maya's eye from behind the counter, her face a mixture of concern and confusion. Maya gave her a quick nod. I'll explain later, and turned back to Jackson. The booth is fine. I just need good light and for Lily to lie down on her right side. Jackson hesitated, then guided Lily back into the booth. The girl slid across the worn vinyl seat, her eyes never leaving Maya's face. There was trust there that made Maya's chest tighten. This child was placing faith in her, and the weight of that responsibility was almost crushing. Maya pulled out her phone, opened the flashlight app. Her hands were trembling slightly. She steadied them, taking a breath. 3 years since her last clinical rotation. 3 years since she'd examined a patient. But the procedural knowledge was still there, embedded in muscle memory. Across the diner at a corner table Maya hadn't consciously registered, Dr. Richard Brennan lowered his coffee cup and watched with narrowed eyes. He'd been chief of pediatrics at Dell Children's Hospital for 12 years. He'd been eating breakfast at Maggie's for the better part of that time, and he'd noticed the Cole family months ago. Hard to miss the biker president and his deaf daughter with their Saturday morning ritual. Now he watched a waitress kneel beside the booth with a phone flashlight, watched Jackson Cole's face cycle through hope and fear, and felt a cold certainty settle in his gut. This was going to be a problem. One way or another, this was going to become his problem. He pulled out his own phone, snapped a discreet photo of the scene, and filed it away. Just in case. Maya leaned over, the booth phone in hand. Jackson had positioned Lily on her right side, left ear facing upward. The angle was awkward, the lighting far from ideal, but Maya had worked in worse conditions during her ER rotation. Lily, I need you to stay very still. This won't hurt, but it might feel weird. Okay. Lily nodded, her small hand finding her father's and gripping tight. Maya activated the flashlight, held it at arm's length to get maximum distance and clarity, and leaned in. At first she saw nothing unusual. The normal curves and shadows of an ear canal. Healthy pink tissue. The darkness of depth. She adjusted her angle slightly, tilting the phone to match the 45-degree angle she'd seen Lily use during her episodes. And there, deep in the canal, nearly at the eardrum, the light caught something. A mass. Dark, compact, but with texture that was subtly wrong. Not the varied, irregular texture of earwax. Too uniform. Too dense, and positioned in a way that would be nearly invisible unless the light hit it from this exact angle. Maya's breath stopped. She pulled back, checked the angle, leaned in again to verify. The mass was still there, still wrong, still exactly what she'd feared and hoped to find. Mr. Cole, her voice came out steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. I need you to look at this. She repositioned the phone, handed it to Jackson, and guided his hand to the precise angle. He leaned over his daughter, squinting into the light. Maya watched his face, saw the moment he spotted it, saw comprehension dawn, followed immediately by horror. What is that? The words came out barely above a whisper. I think it's a foreign object. Something that's been there for a long time, getting covered in wax, compacting against the eardrum. At this depth and with this much accumulation, it would be almost impossible to see without the exact right angle of light. Jackson pulled back his face, draining of color. He looked at the phone in his hand like it was a bomb, like it had just exploded his understanding of the last 8 years. 23 doctors. His voice cracked. 23 fucking doctors looked in her ear. They looked for standard blockages, standard wax buildup. But this is deep and it's camouflaged perfectly. You need very specific lighting at a very specific angle to see it. Jackson's hands were shaking now. He set the phone down carefully as if afraid he might crush it. When he looked at Maya, his eyes were wet. Can you remove it? The question hung in the air between them. This was the moment, the decision that would define everything that came after. Maya's nursing training screamed at her. This required sterile technique, proper instruments, medical supervision, an ENT specialist in a clinical setting. What she was about to propose was borderline insane, possibly illegal, and definitely dangerous. But Lily was looking at her with those trusting eyes. And Jackson was looking at her with the desperate hope of a man who'd been told for 8 years that nothing could be done. And Maya thought about her nephew, about the 15-minute extraction that had ended months of pain, about the pediatrician's words, good catch. I believe I can, she said carefully. But Mr. Cole, I need you to understand something. This is delicate. If I do it wrong, if I push the object deeper, or if I damage the eardrum, I could make things worse. Much worse. We should really go to an ENT specialist right now. Jackson's jaw set. No. Maya blinked. I'm sorry. By the time we get an appointment, drive to the hospital, wait to be seen, that's hours. And Lily's pain subsides after episodes. By the time we're in front of a doctor, she'll be out of acute distress, and they'll tell us to come back if it happens again. I've lived this cycle for 8 years. He leaned forward, his pale blue eyes intense. You saw what 23 specialists missed. You spotted it in 6 months of Saturday breakfast. And you're telling me we should trust the same system that failed us every single time. I'm telling you I don't have credentials. I'm telling you if this goes wrong, I could be charged with practicing medicine without a license. You could be charged with child endangerment. I'm telling you this is not how this should be done. But you can do it. It wasn't quite a question. Maya looked at Lily, who was watching this exchange with growing understanding. The girl's hand moved, signing to her father. Jackson nodded, then looked back at Maya. Lily says the pain today was worse than usual. She says she trusts you. And honestly, Miss Patel, so do I, because you did something no one else did. You paid attention. Maya's throat tightened. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory, something she'd said during one of the last good days before the morphine made coherent conversation impossible. Beta, you have a gift. Don't waste it. Use it to help people. I need tweezers with rubber tips, Maya heard herself say. Water, and everyone needs to stay very, very still. Maggie appeared beside the booth as if summoned. The older woman's face was creased with concern, but her voice was steady. First aid kits behind the counter. Medical-grade tweezers in there. I keep them for splinters and such. What else do you need? Beth, Maya called to the other waitress, a woman in her 40s who'd been serving coffee and watching the drama unfold. Can you hold my phone? I need steady light at a precise angle. Beth hurried over, her face a mixture of fear and excitement. Whatever you need. Jackson repositioned Lily, his large hands gentle, as he arranged his daughter on the booth bench. Lily's small hand gripped his knuckles white. She signed something quick. Jackson's response was just as swift, but Maya caught the shape of it. I love you. We're going to fix this. The tweezers Maggie brought were perfect rubber-tipped surgical grade, the kind designed for foreign object removal. Maya sanitized them using the diner's bleach water solution, washed her hands 3 times at the kitchen sink, and took several deep breaths to center herself. This was insane. This was the kind of reckless decision that ended careers and resulted in lawsuits. But Lily was looking at her with those trusting eyes, and Jackson was looking at her with desperate hope, and Maya's hands were steady as she positioned herself beside the booth. Lily, this might feel strange. If it hurts, if anything feels wrong, you move your hand. Just one movement, and I stop immediately. Understand? Lily nodded, her expression solemn. 8 years old and already carrying the gravity of someone who'd learned too young that life involved pain. Maya inserted the tweezers slowly following the natural curve of the ear canal. The world narrowed to the circle of light from her phone held steady by Beth's capable hands. Millimeter by millimeter. The mass was deep positioned right against the tympanic membrane. One wrong move, and she'd rupture the eardrum cause permanent damage make everything worse. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Her hand was rock steady, guided by muscle memory from countless clinical procedures. The tweezers made contact with the mass. She felt resistance, years of compacted material held in place by the very anatomy meant to protect it. Maya adjusted her grip, found purchase on what felt like the edge of something solid beneath the wax. She began to pull infinitesimally slowly, working the object loose from where it had been lodged for years. The ear canal walls were delicate. Any excess pressure could cause tearing, bleeding, infection. Lily whimpered once. Maya froze immediately, the tweezers motionless. Lily. The girl's hand didn't move. After a moment, she signed to her father with her free hand. Jackson's voice was tight. She says, keep going. It feels weird but doesn't hurt. Maya continued. The object was moving now, sliding fractionally through the canal as she maintained steady, even pressure. Centimeter by centimeter. The accumulated wax came with it, years of buildup, sliding past delicate membranes. Time stopped meaning anything. Maya's universe contracted to the tweezers in her hand, the resistance against the tips, the slow emergence of something that had been hidden for most of Lily's life. And then 90 seconds after she'd begun, though it felt like hours, the object came free. Maya held it up to the light. Beth's sharp intake of breath echoed around the diner. Jackson made a sound somewhere between a sob and a laugh, and Maya stared at what she'd extracted. A small foam earplug, adult-sized, the kind people used for sleeping, completely encased in darkened, compacted earwax. The foam was orange underneath the wax, compressed to roughly the size of a large pea. It had been lodged deep against Lily's eardrum for what must have been years, blocking sound transmission and causing chronic pressure and pain. That's... Jackson's voice broke. He took the tweezers from Maya's hands, staring at the object like it was something from another planet. That's mine. That's my earplug. His face went through a series of transformations. Confusion, comprehension, horror, guilt so profound it was almost physical. I keep them in my garage, on the workbench. Orange container. I use them when test riding bikes because the engines are loud. 8 years ago, I lost a pair. Thought I'd dropped them on a ride, but Lily... He looked at his daughter, who was lying very still, her eyes wide and confused. She was 2. She was always in the garage with me, always getting into things. She must have found it. Put it in her ear. The mathematics of guilt were calculating themselves across Jackson's face. She went deaf right after her 2nd birthday. Started complaining about ear pain within months. We thought it was connected to the hearing loss. We told doctors about the pain. They examined her ears, found nothing because they were looking from the wrong angle at the wrong depth. He looked at Maya, and the devastation in his eyes was almost unbearable to witness. My daughter has suffered for 8 years. 8 years, because I left an earplug where a toddler could reach it. Maya wanted to say something comforting, wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault that he couldn't have known. But before she could speak, Lily's hand flew to both her ears. The girl's eyes went wide, wider than wide. Her mouth opened in shock. She sat bolt upright in the booth, her small hands pressing against both sides of her head like she was trying to block out something overwhelming. Jackson's hands moved frantically in sign language. What's wrong? Does it hurt? Lily, talk to me. But Lily wasn't looking at his hands. She was staring at the diner around her, at the fluorescent lights humming overhead, at the traffic passing outside the window, at her father's face. Her expression cycled through confusion, wonder, terror, amazement. And then in a voice rusty from 8 years of speaking words she couldn't hear, Lily whispered, "Daddy." The word came out perfectly shaped by years of speech therapy, but spoken with the wonder of someone hearing her own voice for the first time in conscious memory. Jackson froze. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Beth made a strangled sound, and Maggie, watching from behind the counter, started crying openly. "I can hear," Lily said louder, now her voice breaking with emotion. "Daddy, I can hear you. I can hear me. I can hear everything." Jackson pulled his daughter into his arms with a force that might have been crushing if Lily had cared. but she was laughing and crying at the same time, overwhelmed by the sensory explosion of a world suddenly alive with sound. The hum of the refrigerator, the clink of dishes in the kitchen, the rumble of traffic outside, voices of other patrons, her own breathing, her father's heartbeat against her ear. "Everything is so loud," Lily said, pulling back to look at her father's face. "Is it always this loud?" Jackson was crying openly now, this combat veteran who probably hadn't shed tears since his wife's funeral. "Yes, baby. Yes, it's always this loud. You'll learn to filter it. Your brain will learn, but yes, this is what sound is." He looked at Maya over Lily's head, and the expression on his face was something Maya would carry for the rest of her life. Gratitude beyond words. Relief so profound it had shattered 8 years of carefully constructed emotional armor. And guilt, the realization that his carelessness had caused his daughter's suffering, would probably haunt him for years to come. But right now, in this moment, Jackson Cole was holding his daughter, who could hear. Who could hear her father's voice for the first time in 8 years. Who could hear her own laughter. Who could hear the world. Maya became aware of applause. The other diners who'd been watching in held-breath silence were clapping. The elderly couple at the counter, the businessman with his newspaper, the construction workers, all of them witnessing what felt like a miracle but was really just careful observation and a willingness to trust instinct over authority. Across the diner, Dr. Richard Brennan stood abruptly, his coffee set forgotten on the table. His face was pale, his expression a complicated mixture of shock and something that looked like anger. He pulled a $20 bill from his wallet, dropped it on the table without waiting for change, and walked out without looking back. But Maya barely noticed. She was watching Lily explore her newly restored sense, watching the wonder and fear and joy playing across the child's face, watching Jackson hold his daughter like she was the most precious thing in the world, which Maya supposed she was. Maggie appeared at the booth with water for everyone. "Well," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "that's the most excitement this diner's seen since Mayor Adler stopped by in 2019. Maya accepted the water gratefully, suddenly aware of how badly her hands were shaking. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her lightheaded and unsteady. She just performed an invasive medical procedure without supervision, without credentials in a diner booth. The full implications of that were starting to sink in. Jackson noticed her trembling. "Miss Patel, Maya, sit down, please. You look like you're about to pass out." Maya slid into the booth across from Jackson and Lily. The little girl was still touching her ears experimentally, still testing her voice by saying random words and marveling at hearing them. "Pizza, motorcycle, Daddy, my name is Lily, Lily Cole, I can hear me say my name." Jackson's hands hadn't left his daughter, but his attention was on Maya now. "I don't know how to thank you. How do I possibly thank you for this?" Maya shook her head. "You don't. You just love her. That's enough." But she knew it wasn't enough. Not for Jackson Cole. She could see in his eyes that he was already calculating how to repay this debt, how to make sure Maya was taken care of, how to ensure she was protected from any potential consequences. "We need to get Lily to an ENT, Maya said, forcing her brain into practical mode. "The ear needs to be examined properly. Make sure there's no damage, no infection risk. The earplug was lodged for years. We need professional follow-up." Jackson nodded. "Dell Children's Hospital. They have a pediatric ENT on staff. Dr. Kim, she's good." He pulled out his phone, started making calls. Maya watched him shift into command mode, the motorcycle club president, who was accustomed to solving problems through sheer force of will and the right connections. Within 10 minutes, Jackson had secured an immediate appointment. One of his Steel Brotherhood brothers knew someone on staff at Dell Children's. Favors were being called in, strings were being pulled. Lily was going to be seen by a specialist within the hour. As Jackson organized their departure, Lily turned to Maya. The child's eyes were bright with tears and joy and exhaustion. Her voice still rusty, but getting stronger. Shaped words carefully. "Thank you for helping me. Thank you for seeing me." Maya's throat closed up. "You're welcome, sweetheart. You're so welcome." Jackson stood, lifting Lily easily in his arms, despite her protests that she could walk. He looked at Maya, his pale blue eyes intense. "This isn't over. We're not done. I owe you more than I can ever repay. But I'm going to try. Steel Brotherhood takes care of people who help our family. You helped my little girl. That means you're under our protection now." It sounded like both a promise and a warning. Maya nodded, not quite sure what she'd just agreed to, but knowing that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to predict. Jackson carried Lily toward the door. Halfway there, he turned back. Maya Patel, I want you to remember this moment. 23 specialists missed what you caught. Don't ever let anyone tell you that your instincts don't matter. Don't let anyone convince you that observations without credentials are worthless. Then he was gone, the door chiming as it closed behind him. Maya sat in the booth surrounded by the diner's normal Saturday sounds and felt the world tilt on its axis. Maggie slid into the seat across from her. Girl, what just happened? I have no idea, Maya whispered, but I think I just changed everything. Outside, Jackson's motorcycle roared to life. Maya could hear it clearly. Lily would be hearing it too now, probably for the first time really understanding what her father's beloved Harley sounded like. The sound faded as Jackson pulled onto East Riverside heading toward the hospital. Maya's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered hesitantly. Miss Patel. The voice was male, professional, cold. This is Dr. Richard Brennan, Chief of Pediatrics at Dell Children's Hospital. I was in the diner this morning. I witnessed what you just did. We need to talk. Soon. Because what you did was either the bravest or most reckless thing I've ever seen. And I'm not sure yet which one it was. The line went dead before Maya could respond. She set the phone down carefully, her hands shaking again. Maggie was watching her with concern. Who was that? Trouble, Maya said quietly. That was Trouble calling to introduce itself. But as she looked at the corner booth where Lily had heard her father's voice for the first time in 8 years, Maya couldn't bring herself to regret anything. Whatever consequences were coming, whatever trouble Dr. Brennan represented, it had been worth it. Lily could hear. That was worth anything. Everything. 3 hours after the extraction, Jackson Cole sat in Dr. Rachel Kim's examination room at Dell Children's Hospital and watched his daughter experience sound with the methodical fascination of a scientist discovering a new element. Lily touched everything that made noise. The paper covering the exam table crinkle. The blood pressure cuff hanging on the wall, metallic clink. Her own fingernails tapping against the plastic chair arm, tap, tap, tap. Each sound produced a visible reaction. Sometimes wonder, sometimes fear. Always overwhelming. Dr. Kim had gray threading through her black hair, wire-rimmed glasses perched on a nose that suggested too many years reading charts under fluorescent lights. She'd been an ENT specialist for 15 years, had examined thousands of ears, and currently stood with an otoscope in her hand, looking like someone had just shown her evidence that gravity worked backwards. Her voice carried professional calm, wrapped around barely contained shock. Mr. Cole, your daughter's ear canal shows residual wax buildup consistent with long-term foreign body obstruction. The tympanic membrane has pressure indentation that's already beginning to heal. There's no perforation, no active infection, no structural damage. Her hearing, Dr. Kim paused, checked her audiometry results again, as if the numbers might have changed in the last 30 seconds. Her hearing is completely normal. 100% function in both ears. Jackson's hands gripped the arms of his chair hard enough that his knuckles went white. How did 23 doctors miss this? Dr. Kim removed her glasses, rubbed the bridge of her nose. Because we look for pathology that fits standard presentations. An adult-sized earplug, lodged that deep at that angle, covered in years of wax accumulation, it would mimic normal canal anatomy under standard examination. You'd need very specific lighting at a very precise angle to differentiate it from organic tissue. A waitress figured it out in 6 months. A waitress with observational skills that exceed most of my residents. Dr. Kim replaced her glasses. Mr. Cole, who performed the extraction, Jackson's jaw set. Maya Patel, the waitress. She did clinical rotations in pediatrics before she dropped out of nursing school. Dropped out? Dr. Kim's tone went flat. So she has no license, no credentials, no legal authority to perform invasive medical procedures. She had 23 failures to learn from. Jackson leaned forward, his pale blue eyes hardening into something that had probably made Taliban fighters reconsider their life choices. My daughter can hear because someone without credentials had the courage to trust her instincts. Your profession failed us. Repeatedly. For 8 years. Dr. Kim held up one hand. I'm not attacking her, Mr. Cole. I'm stating facts that will become relevant very soon, because my boss saw what happened this morning. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Jackson's voice came out dangerously soft. Explain. Dr. Richard Brennan, Chief of Pediatrics. He eats breakfast at Maggie's Diner most Saturdays. He witnessed the extraction. Dr. Kim's expression suggested she was delivering news of a terminal diagnosis. And he's required by hospital protocol to report medical procedures performed by unlicensed individuals. Jackson stood, 6'3" of combat-hardened fury, barely constrained by civilized behavior. He's going to what? Sit down, Mr. Cole. Dr. Kim's voice carried command despite her smaller stature. Getting angry at me won't help. I'm trying to warn you. Dr. Brennan is difficult. He's brilliant, accomplished, and absolutely rigid about medical protocols. What your friend did this morning violated about 14 different regulations. What my friend did saved my daughter. I know. Dr. Kim's voice softened. I've reviewed Lily's medical history. I've seen the reports from Mayo Hopkins Stanford. They all missed it. Miss Patel found it. That's extraordinary, but it's also legally problematic. Lily, who'd been exploring the acoustic properties of tongue depressors against the metal sink, looked up. She'd been reading lips. 8 years of practice didn't vanish just because sound had returned. Her small voice, still rough from disuse but gaining confidence, cut through the tension. Is Maya in trouble because she helped me? Jackson's face softened immediately. He knelt beside his daughter's chair. No, baby, no. Daddy's going to make where Maya's protected. I promise, Richelle. But over Lily's head, Dr. Kim's expression said, you can't promise that. The examination room door opened without knocking. A man in his early 50s entered, expensive suit, salt and pepper hair, styled with precision, the kind of face that photographed well for hospital promotional materials. His eyes were sharp behind rimless glasses, taking in the room with the assessment of someone accustomed to command. Dr. Kim's posture shifted subtly, not quite military attention, but close. Dr. Brennan, I wasn't expecting you. I wanted to examine the patient myself. Brennan's voice was cultured, educated, absolutely certain of its authority. His gaze moved to Lily. Young lady, I'm Dr. Brennan. I'd like to look in your ears. May I? Lily glanced at her father. Jackson's expression had gone carefully neutral, but his body language screamed danger. Still, he nodded permission. Brennan's examination was thorough, professional, and conducted in complete silence. He used the otoscope, checked both ears multiple times, reviewed Dr. Kim's audiometry results, examined the extracted earplug that Dr. Kim had preserved in a specimen container. Finally, he straightened. His gaze moved to Jackson. Mr. Cole, your daughter is extraordinarily lucky. The extraction was performed with remarkable skill. No damage to delicate structures, no infection introduced, complete restoration of hearing. Medically, this is a success. Jackson's eyes narrowed. I hear a but coming. But legally, this is a disaster waiting to happen. Brennan's tone remained professional, but steel underlay the words. Miss Patel performed an invasive medical procedure without a license. You permitted your minor child to undergo that procedure outside a clinical setting. If anything had gone wrong, if the eardrum had ruptured, if infection had been introduced, if the object had been pushed deeper, causing permanent damage, Miss Patel could be charged with practicing medicine without a license. You could be charged with child endangerment. This hospital could face liability for not intervening when I witnessed the situation. Jackson's voice dropped into a register that suggested he was one wrong word from violence. Are you threatening my family? I'm explaining consequences. Brennan didn't flinch. I've been chief of pediatrics for 12 years. I've seen well-meaning amateurs cause irreparable harm. I've seen parents sue hospitals because unlicensed practitioners made mistakes. Medical protocols exist for reasons, Mr. Cole. They protect patients. They protect practitioners. They maintain standards. Your standards failed my daughter for 8 years. Because medicine is imperfect. Because human beings miss things despite training and equipment and best efforts. Brennan's voice took on an edge. But the solution isn't to abandon protocols and let waitresses perform procedures in diners. The solution is better training, better technology, second opinions from qualified professionals. Maya Patel found what qualified professionals missed. Once, in one case. That doesn't validate the method. Brennan pulled out his phone, showed Jackson a photograph. The angle made it clear the diner booth, Maya leaning over Lily with tweezers, the crowd watching. I documented this morning's events. Hospital legal requires me to file a report with the Texas Medical Board and Child Protective Services. Jackson moved. Not threateningly, he'd learned long ago how to control his body, but with enough purpose that Brennan took an involuntary step back. Dr. Kim positioned herself between them, her hands raised. Dr. Brennan, please. There's no need to escalate this. There's every need. Brennan's voice remained steady despite the fear flickering behind his eyes. We can't have untrained individuals performing medical procedures. We can't normalize vigilante medicine. Vigilante? Jackson's laugh was bitter. She saved my daughter. That's not vigilantism. That's courage your profession apparently lacks. Mr. Cole. No. Jackson cut him off. You want to file the reports? You want to bring legal consequences down on someone who helped a child your system abandoned. You do that. But understand something, doctor. I've got 60 brothers in Steel Brotherhood who'll make sure every news station in Texas knows that Dell Children's Hospital is more interested in protecting protocols than helping kids. I've got connections to every motorcycle club from here to El Paso. I've got social media reach you can't begin to imagine. And I've got a daughter who can hear for the first time in 8 years because a waitress had more courage than 23 specialists. Brennan's face went rigid. Are you threatening me, Mr. Cole? I'm promising you, you go after Maya Patel and I'll make sure your reputation never recovers. I'll make sure every parent in this city knows that Dell Children's cares more about liability than miracles. The two men stared at each other across the examination room. Lily watched with wide eyes, her small hand finding Dr. Kim's. The ENT specialist looked torn between professional loyalty and personal conviction. Finally, Brennan spoke, his voice ice cold. Dr. Kim, I want weekly follow-up examinations on this patient for 2 months. Document everything. Any complications, any issues, any problems whatsoever, you report directly to me. He looked at Jackson. Mr. Cole, you're free to go, but Miss Patel is not to perform any more extractions or medical procedures without direct supervision from a licensed physician. That's not negotiable. If I hear of her operating outside proper channels, again, I will file every report I'm legally required to file. And your threats about public relations won't stop me from protecting patients. He left without waiting for a response. The door closed with careful precision, not a slam, but something worse. The controlled exit of a man who just declared war. Dr. Kim let out a breath. Well, that went about as badly as possible. Jackson's hands were shaking with suppressed fury. He's going to come after her. Probably. Dr. Kim moved to the computer, started typing. But he agreed not to file immediate reports. That gives us time. Mr. Cole, I need to be honest with you. Dr. Brennan isn't wrong about protocols. What Miss Patel did was legally questionable. But, she paused, looked at Lily. But she helped your daughter when no one else could. That matters. Will you work with her? Jackson's voice carried desperate hope. If Maya examines patients under your supervision with your license backing her, would that be legal? Dr. Kim's fingers stopped typing. She turned to face Jackson fully. You're asking me to partner with a nursing school dropout on some kind of alternative diagnostic program. I'm asking you to help make sure other kids don't suffer the way Lily did. I'm asking you to supervise someone with extraordinary observational skills so she can help with improper legal channels. That could cost me my job. Dr. Brennan is my boss. That could save children's lives. Dr. Kim looked at Lily, who was watching this exchange with the gravity of someone older than 8. The little girl's voice, growing stronger by the hour, spoke up. Dr. Kim, other kids hurt like I hurt. Maya can help them. Please. The doctor's professional reserve cracked. She rubbed her face, exhaustion and ethical conflict warring visibly. Let me think about it. I'm not saying no, but I need to understand the legal implications, talk to hospital counsel, figure out how this could work without destroying my career. Jackson nodded. It wasn't agreement, but it wasn't refusal either. Thank you for examining Lily, for standing between me and Brennan before I did something stupid. You're a father protecting his child. That's never stupid. Dr. Kim printed out follow-up instructions. Bring Lily back in 1 week. I want to monitor healing check for any delayed complications. In the meantime, she looked at Lily. You're going to be overwhelmed by a sound for a while. That's normal. Your brain needs to learn how to filter, how to prioritize. It'll take weeks, maybe months. Be patient with yourself. Lily nodded solemnly. Everything is so loud. The clock on the wall, I can hear it ticking. The air coming from that vent. Your pen clicking. My own breathing. Daddy's heartbeat when he holds me. It's all so much. It'll get easier. Dr. Kim's voice was gentle. You'll learn, and Lily. What you've experienced today, that's extraordinary. You're extraordinary. Jackson gathered his daughter, said his goodbyes, and walked out of Dell Children's Hospital into afternoon sunlight that seemed too bright air that carried traffic sounds Lily was hearing with new wonder and fear. His phone buzzed before they reached his motorcycle. Text from Hammer Steel Brotherhood's VP Club meeting tonight, 8 p.m. Everyone's talking about what happened. We need to discuss protection protocols for the Waitress. Jackson typed back, agreed. Brennan's going to be a problem. Hammer's response came immediately. We've handled problems before. Jackson looked at that message for a long moment. Steel Brotherhood wasn't an outlaw club. They'd worked hard to build legitimate reputations as mechanics, contractors, veterans, supporting veterans. But there were still members who remembered rougher days, who had skill sets that extended beyond motorcycle repair. He deleted Hammer's text without responding. Whatever protection Maya needed, it had to stay legal. Lily could hear now. He wasn't going to risk his daughter's future by dragging Steel Brotherhood into something that could bring federal attention. But he was going to protect Maya, somehow. His phone buzzed again. Different number. Maya's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Mr. Cole, I just got a call from Dr. Richard Brennan. He says we need to talk. He says what I did could get me arrested. He says, where are you? Jackson's voice cut through her rising panic. Maggie's. I'm still at the diner. I couldn't go home. I keep thinking about what happened, about what I did about... Stay there. I'm coming. Don't talk to Brennan without me present. Don't agree to anything. Just wait. He hung up, secured Lily on the back of his motorcycle with the custom child seat he'd installed years ago when she was 3. The helmet he handed her was equipped with speakers, a modification he'd added, hoping that someday she'd be able to hear music while they rode. Lily's voice carried wonder even through fear. Daddy, I can hear the engine. It's so loud, so powerful. Jackson's throat tightened. Yeah, baby. That's your old man's Harley. Prettiest sound in the world. He drove carefully through Austin traffic, hyper-aware of his precious cargo. Every pothole, every sudden stop, every lane change calculated and controlled. Lily's arms wrapped around his waist, her small body pressed against his back. At a stoplight, she spoke again. Daddy, is Maya going to be okay? That doctor sounded angry. Maya's going to be fine. I'm going to make sure of it. Promise. Jackson thought about Brennan's cold threat about hospital lawyers and medical boards and systems designed to crush anyone who stepped outside prescribed lines. He thought about combat promises made to dying soldiers, promises he couldn't keep, words that haunted him still. But he looked at his daughter in the motorcycle mirror, her face visible through the helmet visor, her eyes trusting absolutely, and made the promise anyway. I promise, baby. Maya helped us. Now we help her. Maggie's diner was quiet when they arrived. The lunch rush had ended, the dinner crowd hadn't started. Maya sat in the same corner booth where she'd extracted the earplug, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup that had gone cold. She looked up when Jackson and Lily entered. Relief and fear warred across her face. I'm so sorry. I should have thought about legal consequences. I should have made you go to the hospital first. You should have done exactly what you did. Jackson slid into the booth across from her. Lily climbed in beside Maya, her small hand finding the waitress's. Maya looked at their joined hands, then at Lily's face. How are you feeling, sweetheart? Everything is really loud and scary and amazing. Lily's voice was getting stronger, more confident. I heard birds singing, and cars, and Daddy's motorcycle, and my own voice saying all of this. Maya's eyes filled. That's wonderful. That's so wonderful. Dr. Brennan called you. Jackson's voice pulled Maya's attention back. What did he say? Maya's hands trembled. He said I performed an invasive medical procedure without a license. He said that's illegal in Texas. He said if there had been complications, I could be charged with a felony. He said, her voice cracked. He said I'm lucky Lily's okay because otherwise I'd be facing criminal charges and civil lawsuits. What else? He said I'm never to perform any medical procedures again without supervision from a licensed physician. He said he's watching me. He said if I step out of line, he'll make sure I never get my nursing license. Ever. Jackson's jaw set. He's trying to scare you. It's working. Maya's laugh was shaky. Mr. Cole, I don't have a nursing license to protect. I dropped out. I'm $47,000 in debt with nothing to show for it. And now I've potentially destroyed any chance of ever finishing my degree because I extracted an earplug from your daughter's ear in a diner booth. You saved my daughter. I broke the law. The law failed Lily for 8 years. Jackson leaned forward. Maya, listen to me. What you did this morning was the bravest thing I've seen outside a combat zone. You trusted your instincts when every social and professional pressure told you to stay quiet. You risked legal consequences to help a child. That's not reckless. That's heroic. Heroic gets you arrested. Not if we do this right. Jackson pulled out his phone, started typing. I'm calling a lawyer. Steel Brotherhood keeps one on retainer. We're going to make sure you're protected. And then, he looked up, his pale blue eyes intense. Then we're going to figure out how to make sure this never happens again. How to create a system where people with observational skills like yours can help kids without breaking laws. Maya stared at him. You're talking about starting a program. I'm talking about making something good come from 8 years of suffering. I'm talking about honoring my wife's memory by helping families who've been failed by the system. I'm talking about giving you a way to use your skills legally and maybe earn enough to finish your degree. Jackson's voice dropped. And I'm talking about making sure Dr. Richard Brennan understands that he can't bully people who help children. Maggie appeared with fresh coffee. The older woman's face was creased with concern. Maya, honey, are you in trouble? Maybe, probably, I don't know. What you did this morning, that was something special. That was something Doc Holliday himself would have been proud of. Maggie squeezed Maya's shoulder. You helped that little girl. Don't let anyone make you feel bad about that. The diner door chimed. A man entered, early 60s, expensive leather jacket that had seen actual road-use gray hair pulled back in a ponytail. His face carried the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades on motorcycles, but his eyes were sharp with intelligence. Jackson stood and embraced the man. Hammer, thanks for coming. Course. Hammer looked at Maya, extended a hand. Name's David Hammond, VP of Steel Brotherhood, but everyone calls me Hammer. Reaper here says you're the one who helped Lily. Maya shook his hand, noted the calluses and scars. I'm Maya Patel. Well, Miss Patel's Steel Brotherhood takes care of people who help our family. Reaper says you might need legal protection. We got a lawyer coming. Best in Austin for medical cases. She'll make sure this Brennan character can't touch you. Maya's throat tightened. I can't afford. Already paid for. Hammer waved off her protest. Consider it a thank you. You gave our brother's daughter her hearing. That's worth more than money can measure. Over the next hour, the diner booth became an impromptu war room. The lawyer arrived, sharp-suited woman in her 40s named Caroline Reed, who listened to the situation with growing interest. Dr. Brennan is technically correct, Reed said finally. Miss Patel performed a medical procedure without a license. However, she held up a finger. There's precedent for Good Samaritan laws in emergency situations. The question becomes, was this an emergency? Lily was in pain, Jackson said. Acute pain. Maya identified a foreign body causing distress and removed it to prevent further harm. In a diner, with tweezers from a first aid kit, without anesthesia or sterile environment, with skill and precision that resulted in 0 complications and complete restoration of hearing. Reed smiled slightly. Mr. Cole, you should have been a lawyer. That's exactly the argument we'd make. But understand, if Brennan pushes this, it becomes a test case. Medical establishment versus alternative observation methods. That's a fight that could go either way. What are our options? Best case, Brennan decides the publicity risk isn't worth it and backs off. He agreed not to file reports immediately, which suggests he's at least considering consequences. Reed looked at Maya. You could agree to his terms. Don't perform any more procedures without supervision. Work within the system. And worst case, he files complaints with the Medical Board and Child Protective Services. Miss Patel gets investigated, possibly charged with practicing medicine without a license class, a misdemeanor in Texas up to a year in jail and $10,000 fine. Mr. Cole gets investigated for child endangerment. Lily potentially gets interviewed by CPS. Lily, who'd been quietly listening to this entire conversation, spoke up. That's not fair. Maya helped me. She made the hurting stop. Why would she go to jail for that? Reed's expression softened. Because adults created rules to protect children, honey. Sometimes those rules work. Sometimes they get in the way of helping. Maya's situation is complicated. Jackson's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. Cole? Mr. Cole, this is Dr. Rachel Kim. I've been thinking about what you asked, about supervising Miss Patel, and she paused. I'd like to meet with her. Discuss possibilities. I can't promise anything, but I can't stop thinking about what she accomplished this morning. Jackson's face shifted. Hope carefully controlled. When tomorrow, Sunday, my office at Dell Children's, 10 a.m., just Miss Patel and myself, we need to talk about what legal supervision would actually look like, whether this is even feasible. We'll be there. Thank you, Dr. Kim. Don't thank me yet. I might decide this is too risky, but I owe it to patients like Lily to at least explore whether there's a way to make this work. She hung up. Jackson relayed the conversation. Maya's face cycled through emotions too quickly to track. Fear, hope, disbelief. She wants to meet with me, actually supervise me. She wants to discuss it. Jackson's voice was careful. That's not commitment, but it's possibility. Hammer leaned back, smiled. See, things are looking up already. Between Reed's legal protection and Dr. Kim's potential support, you're building a team. That's how you fight systems. You build better systems. Maya looked at these people surrounding her. A biker president and his newly hearing daughter. A motorcycle club VP with prison tattoos visible on his forearms. A lawyer who charged $500 an hour and was working pro bono. A diner owner who'd given her a job when she was drowning in debt and grief. I don't understand why you're all helping me. Jackson's voice was quiet but firm. Because you helped Lily when no one else would. Because you trusted your instincts when every pressure told you to stay silent. Because you deserve people fighting for you the way you fought for my daughter. He placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. Tomorrow you meet with Dr. Kim. You figure out if legal supervision is possible. Then we start building something bigger. A program, a system, a way to catch what doctors miss without breaking laws. His pale blue eyes held fierce determination. Brennan thinks he can scare you into silence. He's wrong. We're going to show him exactly how wrong. Outside, the sun was setting. Orange light streamed through the diner windows, casting long shadows. Lily yawned, the exhaustion of sensory overload and emotional upheaval finally catching up with her small body. Daddy, I'm tired. Can we go home? Yeah, baby, let's get you home. Jackson looked at Maya. 10 a.m. tomorrow, Dell Children's. I'll drive you if you want. Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. Watch Jackson lift Lily, this combat veteran, moving with such careful gentleness. Watched Hammer follow them out, phone already to his ear, organizing whatever Steel Brotherhood organized when one of their own needed protection. Reed gathered her papers. Miss Patel, don't talk to anyone about this case without calling me first. Especially not Brennan. Anything he asks you, refer to me. Understand? Yes, thank you. I can't pay you. Steel Brotherhood's paying. And honestly, Reed smiled, I'm billing them half my usual rate because this case is exactly the kind of fight I became a lawyer for. David versus Goliath. Alternative medicine versus establishment. Good Samaritan versus bureaucracy. This is going to be interesting. She left. The diner fell quiet. Maya sat in the booth surrounded by empty coffee cups and the weight of consequences she still couldn't fully measure. Maggie slid in across from her. You okay, honey? I don't know. I helped a child, and now I might go to jail. You won't. Maggie's voice carried absolute certainty. I've lived in this neighborhood 40 years. I've watched Steel Brotherhood grow from 10 members to over 60. I've seen them raise money for veterans, protect abuse victims, help families who lost homes in floods. They take care of their own. And Reaper just declared you one of their own. I'm not a biker. Doesn't matter. You helped his daughter. That makes you family. Maggie patted Maya's hand. Besides, I've known Richard Brennan for 12 years. He eats here every Saturday. Eggs over easy wheat toast, black coffee. He's brilliant and rigid and absolutely terrified of anything that challenges his authority. But he's not stupid. You helped a child his hospital couldn't help. That's embarrassing. He'll push back because that's what he does. But he's also smart enough to know when to fold. Maya wanted to believe that, wanted to believe this would somehow work out. But she couldn't shake the image of Brennan's cold eyes, his controlled threat, his absolute certainty that rules mattered more than results. Her phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. This is Dr. Kim. I wanted you to have my direct number. Tomorrow's meeting, come prepared to explain your observational method. How you noticed the pattern. What made you look from that specific angle? I need to understand your diagnostic process. See you at 10, Maya stared at the message. Diagnostic process. Like she was a professional. Like her observations mattered. She typed back, thank you. I'll be ready. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in her small apartment. One-bedroom bills piled on the kitchen counter. Student loan statements she couldn't bear to open, and replayed the day in obsessive detail. Lily's silent scream, Jackson's desperate hope. The resistance of compacted wax against tweezers. The moment the earplug came free. Lily's first word, daddy, and Brennan's threat. Cold, professional, absolute. Maya had spent 3 years invisible. 3 years serving coffee and pancakes. 3 years watching her nursing skills atrophy. 3 years believing she'd wasted her education, her mother's sacrifice, her own potential. Now suddenly she was visible. Noticed. Potentially valuable or potentially criminal, depending on whose judgment prevailed. The weight was crushing. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. Something that felt like purpose. Like maybe her mother's death and her dropout status and her 3 years of waitressing had been preparation for this exact moment, this exact choice, this exact fight. Her phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Text from Jackson. Can't sleep either. Keep thinking about Lily hearing her own voice. Keep thinking about 8 years of pain I could have prevented if I just secured my earplugs better. Keep thinking about what you gave us. Thank you. Whatever happens with Brennan, whatever comes next, thank you for seeing what everyone else missed. Maya's eyes burned. She typed back, thank you for trusting me, for letting me try, for not stopping me when any rational person would have. Jackson's response came immediately. Rational people don't change the world. Tomorrow we start building something better. Sleep if you can, fight if you can't. Maya set her phone down, closed her eyes, and tried to believe that morning would bring possibility instead of consequences. Outside her window, Austin's night sounds continued. Traffic on I-35, sirens in the distance, the world spinning forward into uncertain futures. Inside room 412 at Dell Children's Hospital, Dr. Richard Brennan sat at his desk reviewing Maya Patel's limited medical records, 3 years of nursing school, incomplete degree, no disciplinary actions, excellent clinical evaluations. He looked at the photograph on his phone, the diner scene, the waitress leaning over the child, the crowd watching, vigilante medicine. That's what this was, and it had to be stopped before it became a trend. Before every dropout with good intentions started performing procedures in coffee shops and grocery stores. He opened his email, started drafting the report to the Texas Medical Board, then stopped, read it again, thought about the conversation with his daughter last night, his daughter whose own child, Brennan's granddaughter Emma, had unexplained hearing loss. 4 specialists, no answers, just like the Cole girl. His daughter's question, Dad, if this waitress found what 4 doctors missed, should I take Emma to her? Brennan had said no. Obviously no. The woman had no credentials. But his daughter's follow-up had stung. You always told me to put patients first. Isn't Emma a patient? He deleted the draft email, stared at his computer screen, made no further reports. Not yet. Not until he had decided whether medical authority was more important than medical results. The question kept him awake until dawn. Sunday morning arrived with the weight of Judgment Day. Maya stood outside Dell Children's Hospital at 9:45 a.m., 15 minutes early, because punctuality was one of the few things she could control. The building loomed 7 stories of glass and steel that represented everything she'd walked away from 3 years ago, everything she might never reclaim. Her hands shook. She pressed them against her thighs, forced them still. Jackson had offered to drive her, but she declined. This meeting needed to be hers alone. Her observations, her method, her defense of instincts that apparently threatened the entire medical establishment. The lobby was quiet on Sunday. Skeleton staff, limited visitors. A security guard at the desk glanced up, nodded her toward the elevators. 4th floor, pediatric ENT offices. Maya's stomach churned. Dr. Rachel Kim's office was smaller than Maya expected. Diplomas on the wall, Stanford Medical School ENT Fellowship at Mass General Board certifications in languages Maya only half understood. Bookshelves crammed with medical texts. A desk buried under case files and research papers. And Dr. Kim herself standing by the window in jeans and a cardigan, looking more human without her white coat. "Miss Patel, thank you for coming." Dr. Kim gestured to a chair. "Coffee, I made a pot. It's terrible, but it's caffeinated." Maya accepted gratefully. The warmth of the mug helped steady her hands. "Thank you for meeting with me. I know this is irregular." Irregular. Dr. Kim's smile was wry. "That's diplomatic. Miss Patel, what you did yesterday morning violated about 14 hospital protocols, possibly broke Texas law regarding medical practice, and definitely gave my boss an aneurysm." She paused. "It also restored hearing to a child 23 specialists declared hopeless. So let's talk about how we prevent the violations while replicating the results." Maya's throat tightened. "You're serious about supervision, about making this legal?" "I'm exploring whether it's possible." Dr. Kim sat behind her desk, opened a yellow legal pad covered in notes. "I spent last night researching precedents, Good Samaritan laws, alternative diagnostic methods, medical observation programs. And I kept coming back to one question. What did you see that 23 specialists missed?" Maya set down her coffee. This was it. The moment to explain instincts. She'd never fully articulated observations that had always felt more intuitive than analytical. "I noticed patterns. Lily came to Maggie's diner every Saturday for 6 months. Same booth, same time. I served her maybe 24 times. 4 of those times she had pain episodes." Maya's voice gained confidence as she moved into familiar territory. "Every episode, same presentation. Left ear, 45-degree, head tilt. Localized, consistent, repetitive. That's not random neurological pain. That's mechanical obstruction." Kim was taking notes. "What made you think foreign body specifically?" "My nephew. 3 years ago, he had a bead lodged in his ear for 3 months. 2 doctors missed it because it was deep camouflaged by wax and positioned at an angle that made it invisible under standard otoscope examination. I spotted it accidentally while playing with him, using a flashlight at the wrong or right angle." "So you had prior experience with missed obstructions?" "One case, but it taught me that standard examination protocols can miss unusual presentations. Doctors look for what they expect to find. They use equipment designed to reveal standard pathologies. But sometimes," Maya searched for words, "sometimes you need fresh eyes looking from fresh angles." Dr. Kim leaned back. "That's observational medicine, pattern recognition outside standard diagnostic frameworks. Medical schools try to teach it, but it's more art than science. You can't really train someone to notice what others miss. Either they see it or they don't." "So where does that leave us?" "Complicated territory." Dr. Kim tapped her pen against the legal pad. "Here's the problem. Your observational skills are extraordinary, but you have no license. I can supervise procedures, but I can't delegate authority I'm not supposed to share. Hospital protocols require licensed professionals performing invasive work. There's no category for gifted observer with incomplete nursing degree." Maya's hope, which had been cautiously building, started to crumble. "So this was pointless. I can't help anyone else. I should just go back to serving pancakes and pretend yesterday never happened." "I didn't say that." Dr. Kim's voice sharpened. "I said it's complicated. Complications require creative solutions." She pulled out a folder, slid it across the desk. I spent 2 hours this morning drafting a proposal, a pilot program. Second listen, free secondary examinations for children with unexplained diagnoses. You'd serve as clinical observer under my direct supervision. All examinations documented, all procedures performed by licensed physicians, all findings reviewed by medical board. Maya opened the folder with trembling hands. The proposal was detailed: scope, methodology, legal framework, liability, coverage, oversight procedures. Her name appeared multiple times: Maya Patel, lead clinical observer. Her voice broke. This is real. You're actually proposing this. I'm proposing we try, with significant caveats. Kim's expression turned serious. You'd need to complete observer training 40 hours minimum, covering anatomy protocols, documentation standards. You'd need to agree to work exclusively under licensed supervision, and you'd need to accept that most cases won't have simple solutions. Lily's situation was unusual. Foreign body obstructions are rare. Most unexplained hearing loss is actually unexplained. No magic wand, no hidden earplug, just medical mystery we can't solve. I understand that. Dr. Kim's gaze was penetrating. Because Jackson Cole is going to expect miracles now. Parents are going to come desperate, hoping you'll find what their doctors missed. And most of the time you won't. Most of the time the answer really is, nothing can be done. Can you handle delivering that news repeatedly? Can you handle being wrong more often than you're right? Maya thought about her mother. 8 months of hospice. 8 months of doctors apologizing that chemotherapy couldn't help, surgery couldn't help, nothing could help. 8 months of Maya searching desperately for alternative treatments, miracle cures, anything that might give them more time. And ultimately accepting that death was the only answer medicine had left. I've delivered that news before, to myself, for months. So yes, I can handle it. But at least we'd be looking, at least we'd be trying, that matters. Dr. Kim nodded slowly. All right, then here's what happens next. I present this proposal to the hospital board. They'll have concerns, liability precedent, Dr. Brennan's objections. Your friend Mr. Cole's motorcycle club will need to provide funding for liability insurance. Expensive insurance. We're talking $2 million coverage minimum. Jackson will find the money. Probably. He strikes me as the kind of man who moves mountains when motivated. Dr. Kim closed the folder. But understand, this is experimental, unproven. If anything goes wrong, if a child is harmed, if we miss something obvious because we're focused on unusual angles, this program ends. And possibly my career ends with it. Why are you risking that? Dr. Kim was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice carried weight. Because I've been practicing medicine for 15 years. I've seen thousands of patients. I've delivered hundreds of diagnoses. And I've been wrong enough times to know that hubris kills. The assumption that we doctors see everything, know everything, can't possibly miss obvious solutions that kills patients. Lily Cole lived in pain for 8 years because 23 of my colleagues were too confident in our protocols to question them. You questioned them, you found the answer. That humility, that willingness to say, maybe we missed something, medicine needs more of that, not less. She stood, extended her hand. So let's try, Miss Patel. Let's build something that supplements medical expertise with observational instinct. Let's create a system where people like you can help within legal frameworks. And let's see if we can prevent another 8 years of suffering for another child. Maya shook her hand, feeling the calluses of surgical work, the strength of someone who'd operated on delicate ear structures thousands of times. Thank you for taking this seriously, for not dismissing me. Thank you for having the courage to speak up yesterday. That took guts I'm not sure I would have had. Dr. Kim walked Maya to the door. I'll call you this week, after I present to the board. Be ready, they'll want to interview you, assess your observational skills, probably put you through some kind of evaluation. It won't be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is. Maya left Dell Children's Hospital feeling lighter than she had in 3 years. Purpose, direction. The possibility of using her skills for something beyond remembering that table 6 needed extra syrup. She pulled out her phone, texted Jackson. Meeting went well. Dr. Kim is proposing a program, more details soon. His response came within seconds. I knew she would. Meet me at Steel Brotherhood Clubhouse. 2 p.m. We need to talk funding and strategy. The clubhouse sat on a half-acre lot in East Austin, surrounded by chain-link fence and mature live oaks. The main building had started life as an auto repair shop before Steel Brotherhood bought it 15 years ago. Now it housed their legitimate business, Cole's Custom Cycles, alongside meeting space, a small kitchen, and enough parking for 60 motorcycles. Maya arrived at 1:55 p.m. punctual as always. The lot was full. She counted at least 40 bikes ranging from pristine vintage Harleys to modern sport bikes to custom choppers that looked like rolling art installations. Men and women in leather vests clustered in groups talking, laughing, the easy camaraderie of people who'd chosen their family. Jackson met her at the gate. Behind him, Lily clung to his hand, her eyes wide with wonder at every new sound. Maya, Daddy said you met with Dr. Kim. Did she say yes? Can you help other kids? Maya knelt to Lily's level. The girl's hearing was perfect, but speech was still piercing, and 8 years of silence left patterns that would take months to fully correct. Dr. Kim wants to try. We're building a program. It's going to take time, but yes, we're going to help other kids. Lily threw her arms around Maya's neck. The hug was fierce, unexpected, and absolutely overwhelming. Thank you. Thank you for making the hurting stop. Thank you for helping Daddy stop being so sad. Over Lily's shoulder, Maya saw Jackson's face crack. He turned away slightly, composing himself. When he looked back, his pale blue eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. Come on, everyone's waiting. The clubhouse interior was surprisingly civilized. Clean floors, organized tool benches, a conference table that looked borrowed from a corporate boardroom. 60 members of Steel Brotherhood filled the space, men and women ranging from their 20s to their 70s, united by leather vests displaying the club patch, a stylized skull wearing a combat helmet, American flag in the background. Hammer stood at the head of the table. All right, everyone settle. We got business. He waited for the room to quiet. Most of you heard what happened yesterday. Reaper's daughter got her hearing back. Medical miracle performed by this lady right here, Maya Patel. Every eye in the room turned to Maya. She felt the weight of their attention, their assessment. These were veterans mechanics, people who'd lived hard lives and earned their respect through action, not words. She'd have to prove she deserved their support. Jackson spoke next. Maya found what 23 specialists missed. Now she's working with Dr. Rachel Kim at Dell Children's to create a program, Second Listen. Free examinations for kids whose doctors can't help them. Looking from different angles, questioning standard assumptions, finding answers everyone else missed. A woman in her 50s raised her hand, road name Nomad, stitched on her vest. What's this got to do with Steel Brotherhood? Funding. Hammer pulled out a spreadsheet. Program needs $2 million in liability insurance. Hospital board wants proof of financial backing. We're proposing Steel Brotherhood sponsors the first year. $2 million. Fundraised through poker, runs bike rallies, donation drives. The room erupted in overlapping conversations. $2 million was serious money. Even spread across 60 members and their networks, it represented significant commitment. A man with gray braiding down his back stood, Wrench, the club's master mechanic. That's a big ask, Hammer. What's our return? What do we get besides good feelings? Jackson's voice cut through the noise. You get to honor every brother who came home broken, every sister who lost someone, every family that got failed by systems supposed to help them. His hands weren't signing now. Lily was occupied with a puzzle at a side table, but his intensity was absolute. My daughter suffered for 8 years because I left an earplug where she could reach it, because I was careless, because I failed her. Maya gave me a chance to make that right, to build something that prevents other fathers from living with that guilt. So our return is legacy. Our return is meaning. Our return is knowing Steel Brotherhood stands for more than motorcycles and beer. Silence. Then Nomad spoke. I'm in. My nephew's got unexplained seizures. 5 neurologists, no answers. If there's even a chance this program could help him, I'm all in. Wrench nodded slowly. My daughter's kid has chronic pain. Doctors say it's psychological. But what if it's not? What if there's something they're missing? He looked at Maya. You really think you can spot things doctors miss? Maya's voice was steady. I can try. I can look from different angles, notice patterns, ask some questions others don't think to ask, but I can't promise miracles. Most cases probably won't have simple answers. Most times doctors are right when they say nothing can be done. But sometimes, like Lily, there's an answer hiding in plain sight. Another member stood younger, maybe 30 military tattoos visible on forearms. I got a question. This doctor who's threatening you, Brennan, what happens when he pushes back, when he tries to shut this down? Then we fight him. Hammer's voice was flat. Legally, publicly, whatever it takes. Steel Brotherhood protects its own. Maya helped Lily. That makes her family. The vote was unanimous, 60 hands raised. $2 million committed over the next year through fundraising. The weight of their support was almost crushing these strangers who just declared themselves her family based on one act of courage. Jackson approached after the meeting dispersed. You okay? You look shell-shocked. I just watched 60 bikers commit $2 million to fund a program that might fail. Won't fail. Jackson's certainty was absolute. You know why? Because you see things. And seeing things, really seeing them, that's the rarest skill in the world. Medical degrees don't teach that. Experience doesn't guarantee it. It's a gift, and we're going to make sure you can use that gift without going to jail. Over the next 3 weeks, Maya's life transformed. Dr. Kim presented the second listen proposal to Dell Children's Hospital Board. The meeting lasted 4 hours. Brennan objected strenuously. Liability concerns, protocol violations, precedent, dangers. But the board voted approval swayed by Lily Cole's documented case and Steel Brotherhood's financial backing. Maya completed observer training 40 hours crammed into 2 weeks. Anatomy refreshers, documentation protocols, legal boundaries, examination techniques. She learned to work within systems rather than around them to channel her observational instincts through proper medical frameworks. The program launched quietly. No press release, no public announcement. Just a small notice on Dell Children's website, Second Listen Program, free secondary examinations for pediatric unexplained diagnoses. Contact Dr. Rachel Kim for appointments. The first family arrived on a Wednesday. Carlos and Maria Reyes, their 5-year-old son Miguel between them. The boy had been diagnosed deaf at age 2, 3 years of silent speech therapy adaptation. Standard tests showed sensorineural hearing loss, cause unknown. Maya examined Miguel in Dr. Kim's office, Jackson observing silently in the corner. The boy was terrified. Too many doctors, too many appointments, too many painful procedures. Maya worked slowly, gaining trust through toys and patience. 20 minutes in, she noticed. Miguel scratched his right ear constantly. Not random nervous fidgeting, specific, repetitive, always the same spot. And when he tilted his head, listening to his mother sign, he tilted left, as if unconsciously trying to relieve pressure on the right. Maya caught Dr. Kim's eye. Can we examine right ear canal, deep examination, multiple angles? Dr. Kim used professional otoscope equipment. Standard angle revealed nothing. She adjusted, trying the 45-degree approach Maya had used on Lily. Light caught something foreign deep against the tympanic membrane. Mr. and Mrs. Reyes, I need to show you something. The extraction took 12 minutes under Dr. Kim's expert hands. Small plastic bead green from a toy broken years ago. Miguel's parents wept. The boy, suddenly hearing for the first time in conscious memory, looked terrified and amazed. 1 case. 2 successes. Maya felt the weight of possibility and pressure building. But case 3 failed. 7-year-old girl, unexplained hearing loss. Maya examined carefully, used every angle, every technique. Found nothing because there was nothing to find. The diagnosis had been correct: sensorineural nerve damage, no physical obstruction. Maya delivered the news to devastated parents, watched their hope crumble, and understood Dr. Kim's warning about delivering bad news repeatedly. Case 4 failed. Case 5 succeeded. Small cotton swab tip lodged for 2 years. Case 6 failed. The pattern established: most unexplained diagnoses were actually unexplained. But some, maybe 5%, had missed physical causes. 5% didn't sound impressive until you calculated actual numbers. In Texas alone, hundreds of children with unexplained conditions. 5% meant dozens of cases where simple observation could change lives. Steel Brotherhood fundraising exceeded projections. Poker runs brought in $50,000. A bike rally in Houston raised another $70,000. Local news covered the story after Miguel Reyes' case, human interest piece about bikers funding alternative diagnostic program. Donations flooded in from families who'd been failed by standard medicine. By month 3, Second Listen had examined 67 children, found overlooked physical causes in 7 cases. 7 families whose children could suddenly hear or breathe easier or sleep without pain. 7 miracles that were really just paying attention. And then Richard Brennan made his move. The cease and desist letter arrived on a Tuesday. Legal language, but the message was clear. Second Listen program operated on questionable legal authority. Observers without medical licenses performing diagnostic evaluations constituted practicing medicine without proper credentials. Hospital board had exceeded authority approving experimental program without full medical board review. Immediate suspension pending formal investigation. Dr. Kim called Maya into her office, her face pale. Brennan went over the board's head, filed complaint with Texas Medical Board. They're launching investigation. Until it's resolved, we have to suspend operations. Maya's stomach dropped. For how long? Months, maybe longer, maybe permanently if they decide the program violates licensing laws. Dr. Kim's voice was tight with controlled fury, and there are 14 children already examined obstructions identified waiting for treatment scheduling. If we shut down now, those families are in limbo. Can't you treat them independently without the program? Not without appearing to validate Brennan's claim that I'm delegating authority inappropriately. If I treat those 14 kids now, it proves his point that I'm letting unlicensed observers direct my medical decisions. Maya felt the walls closing in. 7 successful cases, 14 more waiting, hundreds more who'd never get the chance to be examined. All because one doctor felt threatened by alternative approaches. Jackson's reaction to the news was immediate and volcanic. He stormed into Brennan's office at Dell Children's Hospital without appointment, without permission, with 60 pounds of barely restrained fury. Security tried to stop him. 2 guards in hospital uniforms trained in de-escalation. Jackson moved through them like they were cardboard, not violently but with inexorable purpose. He kicked open Brennan's office door, which had been locked, and stood in the doorway radiating threat. Brennan looked up from his desk, face draining of color. "Mr. Cole, this is inappropriate. I'm calling security." "Security can't stop what's coming." Jackson's voice was dangerously soft. "You shut down the program. 14 kids are waiting for help. Kids whose doctors failed them. Kids who have actual physical problems that your specialists missed. And you're stopping their treatment because Maya Patel makes you look bad." Brennan stood trying to reclaim authority through posture. "This is about medical standards, not ego. Miss Patel is not licensed. Dr. Kim is delegating diagnostic decisions to an unqualified observer. That violates Texas medical practice laws." "Bullshit." Jackson moved into the room. Not threatening, not quite, but definitely invasive. "This is about you being embarrassed. About defending a system that failed my daughter for 8 years. About protecting medical establishment reputation over helping patients. Get out of my office. Not until you drop the investigation." "I can't do that. The medical board has jurisdiction." "Then you shouldn't have filed the complaint in the first place." Jackson leaned over Brennan's desk. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm calling a press conference. Every family's Second Listen helped 7 cases so far will be there. We're going to tell Austin exactly what you're doing, shutting down a program that helps children because it threatens doctor authority. The media will love that story. Hospital chief prioritizes protocols over patients. See how that plays?" Brennan's face went rigid. "Are you threatening me again, Mr. Cole? I'm promising you, you want a war, you'll get one, but you'll lose because I've got 60 Steel Brotherhood members, 7 grateful families, and a waitress who sees things you can't. And all you've got is paperwork and fear." Jackson left before security arrived, but the message had been delivered. That night, Caroline Reed, the lawyer, called Maya. "Brennan's complaint is problematic, but not insurmountable. Medical board investigation will take months. We can fight it, but it'll be expensive in public. Steel Brotherhood is willing to fund legal defense. Question is, are you willing to fight because this gets ugly? Depositions, hearings, media scrutiny. Your entire life examined." Maya thought about the 14 children waiting, about the hundreds more who'd never get examined if Second Listen died, about her mother's voice, Beta, "You have a gift. Use it. I'll fight, whatever it takes." The press conference happened 3 days later. Jackson organized it with military precision. 7 families whose children's second listen had helped, 14 more families whose children were waiting, local news stations, newspapers, medical journals, Maggie's Diner as the location poetic justice where everything started. Maya stood beside Jackson Lily on his other side. The little girl's voice was stronger now, still carrying traces of 8 years without sound, but improving daily. She spoke into microphones without fear. Dr. Brennan wants to stop the program that helped me. That helped Miguel and Tommy and 6 other kids. He says it's about rules, but it's really about not wanting to admit doctors make mistakes. They do. I know because I suffered for 8 years while doctors missed what Maya found. Parents spoke. Maria Reyes, Miguel's mother, her English accented but clear. My son can hear because Maya looked from different angle. Not because she's smarter than doctors, because she wasn't afraid to question. We need more people like her, not fewer. The media ate it up. Sympathetic coverage, human interest stories, editorials questioning whether medical boards were too protective of doctor authority. The pressure built, but Brennan didn't fold. He appeared on local news defending his position. I understand families are grateful, but gratitude doesn't change law. Medical practice requires licenses for patient safety. We can't normalize vigilante medicine, no matter how well-intentioned. Standards exist because people get hurt when we abandon them. His argument was rational, measured, and effective at muddying the waters. Public opinion split. Some supported Second Listen's innovative approach. Others worried about unlicensed practitioners. The medical board investigation continued neutral and slow. Weeks became months. Second Listen remained suspended. The 14 waiting children got referred elsewhere, some successfully treated, some not. Maya returned to waitressing full-time, her brief purpose evaporating. Jackson organized more fundraisers, more rallies, but without program operation, momentum died. 5 months after the cease and desist letter, Maya sat in the same corner booth at Maggie's where everything had started. Same job, same debt, same sense of wasted potential. Except now she knew exactly what she was missing. Knew what helping people felt like. Knew what purpose tasted like. And it made the pancakes and coffee routine unbearable. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello? Miss Patel, this is Dr. Brennan. The voice was tired, lacking its usual professional polish. I need to talk to you, in person, today if possible. Maya's first instinct was to refuse, but something in his tone, defeat maybe or desperation, made her pause. Why, Bio? Because I was wrong and I need your help. They met at a coffee shop near the hospital. Neutral territory. Brennan arrived in civilian clothes, jeans, a sweater, looking a decade older than his 52 years. He ordered black coffee, sat across from Maya, and took a long breath. My granddaughter Emma is 7 years old. She has unexplained hearing loss. 4 specialists have examined her. No one can find physical cause. Standard diagnosis, sensory and neural nerve damage. Nothing to be done. His hands wrapped around the coffee cup, knuckles white. She's in pain, chronic ear pain, tilts her head to the left when it gets bad. And I keep thinking, what if there's something they're missing? Maya's observational instincts kicked in automatically. Left head tilt during pain episodes. Consistent. Yes, every time. Left tilt, right ear pain. Have they examined from non-standard angles? Deep canal, unusual lighting? Standard otoscope examination. Multiple times. They found nothing. Brennan's voice cracked slightly. Miss Patel, I spent 5 months fighting your program. Convinced myself I was protecting medical standards. But really, he looked up, meeting her eyes. Really, I was protecting my ego, my reputation, my authority. And now my granddaughter is suffering, and I'm wondering if someone with your skills would see what 4 specialists missed. Maya felt the weight of irony crushing her chest. The program is suspended. Medical board investigation. You know this. I know. I filed the complaint. Brennan's face showed genuine anguish. I can withdraw it. Tell the board I was mistaken, that my concerns were overblown. But that takes time, months more. And Emma is in pain now, so I'm asking. His voice dropped. I'm asking if you'd examine her, privately, under my supervision as a licensed physician. Not as second listen program, just as a consultation. The request was stunning in its hypocrisy and humanity both. This man had tried to destroy her credibility, threatened her legally shut down a program that helped children. Now he was begging her to help his family. Maya should have said no, should have told him to suffer the consequences of his rigidity, should have walked away. But she thought about Emma, 7 years old in pain, failed by specialists. Another Lily, another child suffering while doctors missed obvious solutions. I'll examine her on 3 conditions. Brennan leaned forward. Name them. First, you withdraw the medical board complaint, publicly state you were wrong about Second Listen, support the program's reinstatement. Agreed, Anne. Second, you volunteer as senior medical advisor for Second Listen. Lend your expertise and authority to help us work within proper systems. Brennan hesitated, then nodded. Agreed. Third, you apologize to Dr. Kim, to Jackson, to every family your investigation delayed. I will. I'll apologize to everyone. Brennan's voice was raw. Miss Patel, I don't deserve your help. I know that, but Emma does. Please. Maya examined Emma the next day in Brennan's home office, Dr. Kim present as supervising physician, Brennan standing anxiously in the corner. The girl was shy, scared of more doctors. Maya used toys and patience, building trust slowly. 20 minutes in, she saw it. Emma scratched her right ear constantly, same spot, same repetitive motion. The left head tilt during discomfort. The pattern was identical to Lily, to Miguel, to every successful case. Dr. Kim deep, right canal examination. Multiple angles. Dr. Kim found it on the 3rd attempt, tiny eraser piece lodged against the eardrum, camouflaged perfectly under years of wax. The extraction took 8 minutes. Emma heard her mother's voice for the first time in 3 years and burst into tears. Brennan watched his granddaughter cry with joy and broke down himself. This chief of pediatrics, this defender of medical authority, this man who tried to destroy Second Listen, he wept openly while his granddaughter discovered sound. Afterward, he kept his promises. Withdrew the medical board complaint with formal letter admitting error. Appeared on local news supporting Second Listen's reinstatement. Apologized personally to Dr. Kim Jackson and the 14 families his investigation had delayed. The medical board cleared Second Listen within 2 weeks. Program operations resumed. Brennan joined as senior medical advisor, lending credibility and expertise. His presence convinced skeptical doctors to support rather than oppose alternative observation methods. Over the next 3 years, Second Listen expanded. 5 locations across Texas, partnerships with 23 medical facilities, 247 children examined, 47 successful cases, physical obstructions found and removed, hearing restored, pain eliminated, 200 children whose diagnoses were confirmed correct, no physical cause, no simple solution, but 200 families who got thorough examinations and honest answers. Maya finished her nursing degree. Steel Brotherhood scholarship covered remaining costs. She graduated top of her class, specialized in pediatric ENT, became Second Listen's Director of Clinical Observations. Her official title, Nurse Practitioner Diagnostic Innovation Specialist. Dr. Kim published case studies in medical journals. The Second Listen protocol became medical school curriculum, teaching future doctors to question assumptions, examine from unusual angles, value observational instincts over rote procedures. Jackson built the program into his legacy. Not just for Lily, though she remained the inspiration, but for every family failed by systems designed to help them. Steel Brotherhood's annual fundraisers became legendary. The Iron Run Poker Rally raised $100,000 yearly. Families traveled from across the country seeking Second Listen examinations. Lily thrived. Speech fully corrected by age 10. Perfect hearing maintained. She joined choir, fell in love with music, started writing songs. Her voice silent for 8 years, then overwhelming, then beautiful became her identity. By age 13, she performed at Steel Brotherhood events, her signature song titled The Woman Who Heard My Silence, written about Maya. The lyrics made Maya cry every time 23 said there's nothing there. But one woman chose to care. She heard my silence, saw my pain, gave me back the world again. On the 5-year anniversary of Second Listen's founding, they held a gala. 500 attendees, all 47 successfully treated families. The children, now ranging from age 6 to 17, gathered on stage. A choir of voices that should have remained silent, singing together. Maya stood in the audience beside Jackson and Lily, watching this impossible gathering. 47 miracles, 200 thorough examinations, thousands of hours of observation, 5 years of fighting medical establishment, defending alternative methods, proving that sometimes the answer is simple if you're willing to look differently. Jackson's arm wrapped around her shoulders. You did this. All of this started because you paid attention. You did this. You funded it. You fought for it. We did this. Jackson's voice was firm. You, me, Dr. Kim Steele, brotherhood, every family who believed, we built something that matters. Lily tugged Maya's hand. She was 16 now, applying to University of Texas to study deaf education. Not audiology, she'd changed her mind. She wanted to teach deaf children that silence wasn't disability, that different ways of experiencing the world all had value. That identity didn't require fixing. Maya, I wrote a new verse. For tonight. Can I add it? Of course, sweetheart. It's your song. Lily returned to the stage. The 47 children quieted. Lily's voice, strong and clear, and absolutely certain, sang the new verse. We were broken, called unfixable, told to accept what couldn't change. But someone saw what others didn't. Someone brave enough to try. Now we sing with voices no one thought we'd find, because one person paid attention and taught us we were worth the time. The audience erupted. Maya found herself crying not from sadness, but from overwhelming purpose. This was why she'd become a nurse. This was why her mother's sacrifice had mattered. This was why 3 years of waitressing hadn't been wasted time, but preparation. Dr. Brennan approached after the performance. 5 years had softened him, therapy, humility, working alongside Maya rather than against her. Miss Patel, Maya, I owe you more than apologies. You taught me that being right about protocols matters less than being open to possibility. Thank you for saving Emma. Thank you for teaching this old doctor new tricks. Thank you for being willing to learn, for admitting you were wrong. That took courage I'm not sure I would have had. After the gala, Maya returned to Maggie's diner. 1 week later, a young mother entered with a 5-year-old daughter. The woman was nervous, hesitant. The girl was deaf, suffering from chronic pain. 3 doctors had found nothing. Maya recognized the pattern, immediately left, head tilt right, ear scratching. She knelt to the girl's level, signed in ASL. Hi, I'm Maya. I think I can help you. Would you like to come with me to my office? The mother's eyes filled with desperate hope. The other doctors said nothing could be done. Maybe they're right. Maybe there really is nothing to do. Maya's voice was gentle but honest. But we'll look from different angles. We'll pay attention. And we'll tell you the truth whatever we find. She drove them to Second Listen's main office, the facility Steele Brotherhood had funded, where Dr. Kim supervised, where Brennan now volunteered. She examined the girl carefully, methodically, using every technique refined over 5 years. 20 minutes in, she found it. Small plastic bead deep in the right ear canal, positioned at an angle that made it invisible under standard examination. Dr. Kim extracted it with practiced precision. The girl heard for the first time in conscious memory. Case 48. One more family changed. One more child given back the world of sound. One more proof that paying attention really, seeing people mattered more than protocols or credentials or assumptions. Maya walked out of the examination room to find Jackson and Lily waiting in the lobby. They'd come to watch the examination, though they'd stayed out of the room. Lily's eyes were wet. You did it again. You saw what no one else did. We did it. Maya gestured to the office, the equipment, the staff. All of us, together. Jackson pulled both Maya and Lily into a hug. This unlikely family biker president, former waitress girl, who'd learned to hear twice, bound together by one morning in a diner when courage had mattered more than credentials. Outside, Austin's evening sounds continued. Traffic voices, music from bars on 6th Street. The constant symphony that deaf children across Texas were learning to hear, because someone had been willing to question whether doctors knew everything. Because sometimes miracles don't need medical degrees. Sometimes they just need someone brave enough to look from a different angle, trust their instincts, and speak up when everyone else stays silent. Sometimes they need someone like Maya Patel, who saw what others missed and taught the world that paying attention is the rarest and most valuable skill of all.